They have the original sin, which is the sin which was committed by Adam and Eve, that is called as the original sin. And then every person who is born a Christian is born in that sin. So even before the fetus has done, there is only one birth basically in Christianity. So before being born, before doing anything at all, the baby is a sinner. So every person is born in that sin, and because everyone is a sinner, he has to, or she has to, they they have to believe that Jesus Christ had given up his life, or he has suffered for the sins of humanity, for the sins of mankind. What about Gandhiji? Gandhiji was such a great person, but he was not a Christian. So what happens to him? So they said that however good he was, he would have gone to hell because he did not believe in Christ. Then there is this some sect of Christianity who baptized Mahatma Gandhi after his death posthumously, and then they declared that now that he is a Christian, he has a place in heaven for him. So there is a lots of, like, there are so many questions about this, and those are not really answered well. Today, my topic is going to be good Hindu, a description of good Hindu and a good Christian. So, who is a good Hindu? Who is called a good Hindu? Who is called a good Christian? What is the definition? And what makes them want to be good? So, what are the teachings in the Hindu religion? What are the teachings in the Christian religion which make the people, the followers, want to be a good Hindu or a good Christian? So, this is the overall topic. We will be looking at both these definitions. We will be comparing between them, and that will just give us an overview of these two terms and how the religion drives persons or drives people to be good. To start with, who is a good Hindu? We will start from here, which is our uh, a familiar ground. So, a good Hindu is called as a Papa Bhiru. Like, we hear people saying this thing like such and such person, he is a Papa Bhiru person, he is innocent, he won't hurt a fly. So, that kind of a person is called Papa Bhiru. The word Papa Bhiru means Pap. Pap is uh, he who will not do pap, he who is afraid to do pap, he who will shy away. If a incident so happens that he has to do pap, he will rather run away from that place. Such a person is called as a Papa Bhiru person. So what is pap? We must understand the first thing is pap is not sin. Sin has a religious context, and sin is a behavior which goes against the commands of God. That is sin. Pap is something different. What is pap? So it is defined in this one shlok. This is one definition. There will be many definitions, but this definition is also good enough. So this definition is, it comes in one shlok which says Ashtadasha Puraneshu Vyasasya Vachanadvayam Paropakaraha Punyaya Papaya Parapidanam. So it is believed that all the 18 Puranas, they were written by Vyasa Rishi, and the summary of all of it, the 18 Puranas, they run into 4 lakh shlokas. So it's a huge repository. But from that huge repository, if somebody has to take out the summary, so that summary comes in just these two vachan, in these two statements. And those two statements are Paropakara Punyaya, Papaya Parapidana. So what is Punya? Punya is doing Paropakara. So, doing something good unto others, helping somebody who is in need, helping the sajjan, that is paropkar, that is punya. Whereas, doing something bad unto others, that is pap. Very simple definition. In this, we also see, like, later on saints, they also have defined punya and pap in a similar way. So, there is Sant Narsi Mehta. He says, Vaishnava Jana to tene kahiye, पीड़ पराई जाने रे, पर दुखे उपकार करेशु मन अभिमान न आए रे. So what he is saying is that uh, if you do paropkar, paropkar is punya. If you do paropkar, you should forget it. You shouldn't even remember it. You shouldn't feel very proud about helping others. So a Hindu is told that if you feed a hungry person, if you give somebody a bag of rice, forget it. Don't expect him to do something for you in return. That is punya. And pap is doing something bad onto others, giving somebody dukkha. That is pap. So somebody else is your spouse, your children, your parents, your family. So if you are giving them dukkha, that is pap. It goes beyond your family as well. So if you are giving dukkha to the people in your community, that is pap. If you are hurting not just humans, but even if you are hurting animals, if you are hurting cats and dogs and cows and cattle or lamb, that is also pap. And this uh, definition, it even includes not just animals and plants, but it also includes the pancha mahabhuta. So it means that if you pollute the earth, that is also pap. If you pollute the water sources, that is also pap. So this definition of pap is uh, it is not exclusive. It is a very generalistic definition which says you shouldn't give dukkha to anybody else. That is pap. So this is how a papa bhiru person is. A papa bhiru person will be afraid to give dukkha to anybody else. But why? Why should he be afraid? Why should somebody be afraid of doing pap? And that is explained by the Karma Siddhanta, which is given in the Hindu Dharma. So, this Karma Siddhanta says that if you do something good, you will get good results, you will get good fruits. And if you do something bad, you will get bad results. So, this is the cycle of karma, that whatever you do, you will get results. If you are hungry, you eat food, you are going to gain strength. So you got that results right away. Sometimes you don't get results right away, but you get results after a year. You study for one whole year, and at the end of year, you are going to get good marks because you have studied. So you are going to get the fruits of your work today, right away, maybe tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, maybe a year later, and if not a year later, maybe 10 years later, and if not 10 years later, it will be in the next birth. But you are going to get the fruits of whatever you do. That is the karma siddhanta. So the cycle of birth and death goes around the karma that we have done. So if there is so much karma, which of the fruits of which I haven't availed, then that karma goes into my bank account. And every time an Atma takes birth, the Atma will withdraw some of that. Sanchit karma, it is called. Atma will withdraw some of that, and that will become the prarabdha. So, throughout this life, with the help of the body, the Atma is going to exhaust the prarabdha the Atma has brought. So, the Atma will be gaining the fruits of the karma which was done earlier. So, the a person who has taken birth, he will get sukh and dukkha based on whatever karma he has done before. And once the prarabdha ends, then it means death. And at the end of this life, whatever karma has been done in this life, it will be accumulated in the big account of karma. So it will again go into the sanchit karma. So this is that cycle which tells a Hindu person that if you do pap, you will have to avail the fruits, the bad fruits of your pap. You will have to avail it today, if not today, tomorrow, if not tomorrow, in your next birth. But whatever you do, you will have to pay for it. So, this makes a Hindu person think twice, think thrice before he does a pap, before he gives dukkha to somebody else. Now, this karma siddhanta and this cycle of life and birth, the salient feature of this is There is no God. No God is involved. I take the responsibility of everything that I do. I am accountable for all my sukha dukkha. I don't blame anybody else. So, in this, there is no God, there is no judgment. Nobody is going to judge whether I have done right or wrong. Based on that judgment, nobody is going to give me a punishment or a reward. And there is no bribe of heaven, or there is no threat of hell. Without all of this, the Hindu Dharma ensures that a person will behave in a good way, a person will behave in an ethical way. And this comes through this framework of Karma Siddhanta. And this is accepted in Hindu, in Buddha, Jain, and Sikh thought as well. So Hindu is including all these pantha. This is what makes a person Papa Bhiru. So this is a theory, right? Siddhanta, the Karma Siddhanta is a theory which is put forth by Rishis, and this is put forth by Rishi Munis. What about the Devata? What do the Devata say about this? So we see in Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan, that is the Dev, Krishna, he talks to Arjun about Karma Yoga. Bhagwan says, Karmanyevadhikarasya ma phaleshu kadachana. You have the right to do your work. You have the right to do the action. But once you do the action, you have no right on what the result will be. The result will be automatic. For example, when you hold a bow and an arrow in your hand, you have the right, you have the adhikar to throw that arrow towards the target. But that is all the right you have. That is the time when you have control. But once the arrow leaves the bow, then you do not have the right to say that, the arrow should reach the target or arrow should miss the target. Once it goes out, you don't have the right. You have right only on your karma. And so do your karma. So there is so much in Gita about karma, where Krishna says, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, do your work. And do your work being steadfast in yoga. Or Krishna says, Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. So doing your work skillfully, that is yoga. So do your work very well. That is what Gita teaches. So this is the Hindu Devatas, they also speak about the Karma Siddhanta. And when Krishna is giving this advice to Arjun, we see that Krishna is speaking as a Arjuna's friend, philosopher, and guide. Krishna says, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. Krishna says, Arjun, you are my friend, you are my follower, you are my very dear friend, and I'm giving you this advice as a friend. So when God is giving advice, it is a friendly advice. It is not commands. He is not giving orders. He is not giving commands. He tells all of this Gita, and at the end of telling Gita, he says to Arjun that I have revealed this treasure to you. Now you reflect upon it and do as you wish. Yethechhasi tatha karu. So he leaves the decision to the follower. He leaves the decision to his devotee. So there are no commands, no orders. What we see is friendly advice. And while Krishna is giving this advice, we see that Arjuna is asking questions. So in the beginning, when Krishna speaks about karma and he speaks about Jnana Yoga as well, Arjun says to him, what do you mean by this? Why are you confusing me? You tell me do karma and then you say Jnana Yoga is better than Karma Yoga. What is this? Tell me one thing that I should do. Don't confuse me. So Arjun is very openly, very open-mindedly, without any fear, he is asking questions to the Dev. He is asking questions to Bhagwan. And even Krishna says in Gita, he encourages Arjun to ask questions. Krishna says, Tadviti pranipatena, pariprashnena sevaya. Ask me questions and then learn this advice from me. So Krishna and Arjun, they have spent their childhood together. They have spent so much time together. They have had so much free time. But Krishna did not tell Gita at that time. Krishna is telling Gita on the battlefield. Why? Because it was only on the battlefield that Arjuna asked him for advice. It was only on the battlefield that Arjuna asked questions, and that is why the Bhagwan revealed all this knowledge. We will see the same thing in all the Hindu scriptures. So if we look at Upanishad, they are also in a question answer format. So there are students and there are guru. So students ask questions and guru gives the answers. And that is how all the scriptures, they tell us about the philosophy of Hindu religion. So what we see in all of this is the very open relationship between the listener, between the devotee, between the follower, between the student and the teacher, the guru. Or that guru could also be a dev, who is Krishna, for example, in Bhagavad Gita. So this is the relation that we see between the teacher and the student. Now we come to the second part, and let us now understand who is a good Christian. This is a very commonly used term in English, where people say, such and such person is a God fearing person. And a God fearing person is somebody who wouldn't hurt others. So a good Christian is a God fearing person. A God fearing person is the one who obeys the God. He does exactly what the God has asked him to do. So, where are the instructions from God? They are in the Bible. And why should one, God fearing, that is the description of a good Christian. But why should one fear the God? It is because the Bible tells so. The Bible tells that a follower, a devotee, should be afraid of the God. And this is mentioned in the Bible more than 300 times. So now let us take a quick look at what the Bible is. Bible itself means books, a set of books. And there are two categories of these books. There is the Old Testament and the New Testament. The word testament means a contract. It is a contract between God and his followers. So, like any other contract, it has conditions. It has conditions for the party A and it has conditions for the party B. And if anybody is going to not follow those conditions, then the contract is broken. And there will be a punishment for breaking those terms in the contract. So we have Old Testament and New Testament. Old Testament has 39 books, New Testament has 27 books. In the Old Testament, the 5 most important books are the books of law, which speak about how a follower of the Lord should behave. The do's and the don'ts, it all comes in these 5 books. And then there are other books which are about the lives of the prophets. There are histories which speak about the works of kings. And then there is poetry and prayers. All of this comes in the Old Testament, which is the Jew part, the Hebrew Bible. And then after the death of Jesus Christ, the followers of Jesus Christ came up with the next part, which is the New Testament. And this New Testament has Gospels. These are 4 books which speak about the life and works of Jesus Christ. Then there are Acts of Apostles, which are about the works of the disciples of Jesus Christ. And there are epistles, which are the letters that have been written to church. And lastly, there is the book of Revelation, which speaks about what will happen when Christ comes again. So this is the scope of Bible. So now when we are thinking of 66 books, let us understand how big it is. You will see that Old Testament has 39 books and it has about 23,000 verses. New Testament has 27 books and it has around 8,000 verses. So entire Bible is 66 books with 31,000 verses. So these are small books, so one can read all of this in probably a month. So it is possible that one can just simply read the whole of Bible. And for comparison, here are some of the Indian dharmic books. So you can see that there are so many books and there are so many verses. Like for example, Mahabharata has 1 lakh shlok, or the Mahapuran have 4 lakh shlok. And then there are Upanishads. The books itself number more than 200. Or Agama text, there are more than 500 books in the Agam text, and then there are so many others. I'm not even including the Buddha literature and the Jain literature. So there is so much of text which is available, and all of this text, it is not possible to read in one lifetime. So the point here is, Bible, you can read it within a month, and you will get the complete overview after reading the Bible about the Bible, the Christianity. So these are the books of Old Testament. We will be taking a look at some of the verses which come in Genesis and Exodus and Deuteronomy. And these are the books of New Testament. Now we come to the part in Bible which is called as the Ten Commandments. This is the most important part in the Bible, probably because it is telling about the commands which have come from God. So these commands were given by God Himself to Moses, and Moses brought it to the people. So in these commands, the second command, it says, so this is God who is speaking, and God is telling that you should not bow down to any other gods. You should not worship any other gods. And if you do so, I don't like it because I am a very jealous God. And if you do so, I will punish you. I will not only punish you, but I will punish the children. I will punish your children. I'll punish your grandchildren. I'll punish your great grandchildren also. Just to compare, in the Rigveda, we have this teaching which says Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, meaning that the God is one, but people call him by different names. So there can be many gods. And even if there are so many gods, and if you bow or if you worship to any god, it is said that Sarva Deva Namaskaram Keshavam Pratigachati. So even if you pray to any god, the greetings, they will go to Keshav only. So this name Keshav can be replaced by any name of your god. So it could be Raghavam Pratigachati. It could be Ganesham Pratigachati. So this is the mindset of a Hindu, that wherever you go and you pray, that prayer is going to go to your loved God only. But in the Ten Commandments, what we see is that no other God is to be worshipped. And if you worship any other God, the Lord is going to get very angry. And there is an example of this. In Bible itself, in Genesis, there is the story of Adam and Eve. So in this story, God creates light, and then God creates the earth, and later God creates sun and moon and stars, and then water and plants and animals. And then on the sixth day, God creates man. God creates Adam in his own image. And after he creates Adam, he thinks that Adam needs some companion. He is very lonely and he needs a companion. So God creates Eve, the first woman, from the rib of Adam. So we see here that Adam is the image of God. So the male is the image of God, and the woman is created from a crooked rib. So it speaks about the view towards women in Christianity. Anyways, but after he creates Adam and Eve, he lets them go in the Garden of Eden, and he tells them, go enjoy yourself, but don't eat the fruits of this tree of knowledge. So then Adam and Eve, they are wandering around in that beautiful garden and enjoying themselves. But then one day what happens is a serpent comes over there, and the serpent tempts Eve to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge. So Eve eats that fruit, and she also gives that fruit to Adam. And well, there they have disobeyed the God. This is the sin. This is called as the original sin. So eating the fruit is not such a great thing, but disobeying the God is the crime. And because of this, the God gets very angry at Adam and Eve, and he curses them. Now, when the God curses them, God says to Adam, henceforth, you and your descendants, you will have to toil in your farms, in your lands, so that you will be able to create food for yourself. And he curses Eve, saying that you will be cursed with pain during childbirth, and you will always be subordinate to the man. So, this curse is not just for Adam and Eve, but this curse is for the descendants of Adam and Eve. So, the sin has been done by the Adam and Eve, but the descendants, they have been cursed. So, the male descendants, they have to toil, they have to work. There is again this difference between the view towards work. In over here, we see in the story of Adam and Eve that doing work, doing efforts, toiling in the field is a punishment. Whereas in the Indian context, in the Hindu context, karma is a yoga. Karma yoga, by doing your work, you are going to reach self realization. So there is this one difference again. Anyways, so what has happened over here in this story of Adam and Eve is that sin has been committed by Adam and Eve, but who is cursed? It is their descendants. Here is another example from the Bible, and this is from the Deuteronomy chapter 10. This chapter also that tells the followers that you must be afraid of the God, you must be fearful of the God, and you must walk in obedience. You must follow His commands. So, such kind of verses you will find everywhere in the Bible. Here is another one: fear the God. And what does this one say? Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 24. It says that when somebody is not afraid of the God anymore, the God is going to, wipe you out from this earth. And as an example, there is this story of Noah. So this story of Noah says that people, they have forgotten the God. They are not fearful of the God anymore. They are not following the commands of the God. And so the God gets angry at them and decides to finish them off. And for that, God brings in great flood. But then he realizes that Noah and his family, they are fearful of the God and they are obeying him. So God tells Noah that he should build a ship, and then he should, he will be saved from the flood. So that is what Noah does, and then everybody is wiped off from the face of the earth, and then again humanity continues with the descendants of Noah. This is the story which comes in Bible. We see a similar story of Manu and the floods in the Indian scriptures. But in this, there is a subtle difference, and that difference is in the story of Manu, the God is not bringing the flood. God is only saving Manu from the flood. So that is a difference over here. What we understand from this uh, verse of Deuteronomy is that when a follower forgets God, God will destroy him. This is what is taught through the story of Noah. And then here is another one, another command which comes again in Deuteronomy. And here the God is saying that if you are not fearful of the God and if you don't serve Him only, if you are serving any other gods, then the God will destroy you from the land. And we will find many examples of this in the stories of Bible itself. The ultimate example of this is seen in Deuteronomy chapter 28. This chapter has 64 verses, and in the first 14 verses, they speak about what will happen to you if you obey the God. So, if you obey the God, He is going to bless you. He will bless you with children. He will bless your cattle with calves, and He will bless your flocks with the lambs, and you will get lots of grains. There will be abundance. You will be the head of the community, etc. So all of these blessings will come to you if you obey the God. And then the next part from verses actually 14 to 64, they speak about what will happen to you if you don't obey the God. What will happen if you don't obey the God? If you are going to pray to any other gods, then what will happen? God will send plagues upon you. Plague is something like an epidemic. What today we are seeing with Corona, it is something like that. So God will send fearful plagues upon you. And all of these curses, they are for the person who has disobeyed. So He will send disasters upon you. The God will give you lingering and severe illnesses, and then you will be afflicted with boils from the top of your head to your toe. And these boils will be, filled with pus and all, and it will be uncurable. And when you die, your body will be eaten by birds and wild animals. So these are the curses which are given to the person who is disobeying the God. But not just that person. God says, I will even curse your family. I will curse your wife, your children. So, the next verses in the same chapter, they say that if you disobey the God, your woman will be raped by another man. God will send fearful plagues upon your children. So, your children will also have to pay for your sin. And not only will God curse you, but God will curse your children, the children of your cattle, and the children of your sheep as well. Your fields, they will be attacked by locusts, so you will not have anything to eat at all. And it will please the God to ruin and destroy you. So this is what will happen to the family of the person who disobeys. And not just that, even the community of this person will be cursed. So what are the curses for the community? God says that you will be defeated by the enemies, and there will be a genocide, because you who are so numerous as the stars in the sky will be left few in number. So very few of you will be left. All the rest of them, they will die, and you will be uprooted from your land, and you will find no resting place for your food. There will be no shelter on your head, and you will live in constant fear. When the night falls, you will be afraid, you will want the night to end. And when the day begins, you will be again dreading when this day will end. So you will live in constant suspense and fear. And in hunger and thirst and nakedness and poverty, you will have to serve your enemies. And God will send you back to Egypt, because that is from where God had saved the Jews earlier. So God will send you back to Egypt and into slavery. But even there, what will happen is, when you try to sell yourself, nobody is even going to buy you. So these are the calamities that will fall upon the community of the person who disobeys the God. So here you will see that this framework, it makes it makes very difficult to stop believing in the God, or to pray to, or to go to any other God. Because if one person is doing that, his family is going to suffer, his community is going to suffer. So everybody from that family, from that community, they are going to hold on to this person and not let him do anything which is against the Bible. So this is the fear which we will see in Bible. And now we come to this. What is sin? So basically, sin is disobedience of God. So not obeying the God is a sin, and for that sin, you will have to face the wrath of the God. And then there is one very unnatural law, you can say, in which we see in the Bible. And what it says is that if you have done a sin, but you repent for it and you confess your sin, then you will be forgiven by the God. And once you are forgiven, your sins will be wiped out. So this is saying like something, we have this Newton's law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if there is an action, there has to be a reaction. But this law says that even if you do a sin, you will not get any results from it. You will not suffer from it. So this is kind of an unnatural law, very, very opposite of what the Karma Siddhanta tells us. Let's see, we have seen examples of what this God-fearing persons have had to do in Bible. But even in the modern times, we see that there are people who fear to go against what is written in the Bible. For example, there are as many as 13 states in the USA that have had debates and court cases on teaching Darwin's theory of evolution in school. Because Bible tells a different story of creation. Bible tells that a man is created in the image of God. And here Darwin comes telling that man has evolved from monkeys and apes. So many people, they don't want to teach theory of evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution in schools. Or there are so many Christian countries which do not allow abortion. And they don't allow abortion because, again, the same thing, because Bible says that man has been created in the image of God. And the fetus which is in the womb of a woman, that is the image of God. And hence, even if that pregnancy is going to be life threatening for the mother, abortion is not allowed. And there was this very well known case of Dr. Savita Happalanwar from Ireland, who died because of complications during childbirth, during a miscarriage, and she was not allowed an abortion. That is why she died. So these are the things that we see even today. What happens to people who, who are God fearing in modern times? Over the last 400 years, many people have given up their belief in God. When they started seeing, these are the things which are happening because of the fear of God, they started giving up the belief in God. And we see this in Western countries like in the USA and even in Europe. The thing in Christianity is that once you give up God, you have actually given up Christianity. There is nothing else in Christianity to be offered to people who don't believe in God. In contrast, in Hinduism, you can be a astic and a nastic. You can believe in God, you cannot believe in God, whatever, you still remain a Hindu. But in Christianity, it is completely centered around the God. And if you don't believe the God, you simply get thrown out of the religion and you become an atheist. So there are so many people who say they are atheist. And once they become atheist, again, the new problems that come with this are, how does one make a atheist person be ethical? What is it that will ensure that he will be moral? And there are these discussions about how to bring in ethics without God. So this is like reinventing the wheel, how to bring in ethics without the concept of God. And we have seen that this concept is already there in the Karma Siddhanta, where whatever you do, you will have to pay for it. So you will get either bitter fruits or the sweet fruits of your work. And there is no God, no judge. There are no rewards and no punishment. You are simply responsible for everything that is happening in your life. So you take up that responsibility and do good. So this is the Papa Bhiru part. And in the God fearing part, we see that a person has to believe in the God. He has to follow the commands that have been given by the God. And he who obeys, he will be blessed. He who doesn't obey, he will get punished. And those who obey, after death, after the day of judgment, they will eternally live in heaven. And those who do not obey, they will eternally live in the hell. And lastly, there is another way out of all of this, by confessing your sins and repenting and getting forgiveness. So, this is the overall summary, a difference between a definition for a good Hindu and a good Christian. And I will stop over. And if you have any questions, we can talk about it.
Dipali ji, when you mentioned the Old Testament and the New Testament, you used words like Navakarar, Navikarar, and something else. So, are these Hindi words or Marathi words, the terminology?
Yeah, this is a Marathi word. It is the Marathi name for testament. So, testament is a contract, so it is Karar. And Old Testament is Juna Karar, and New Testament is Nava Karar. So, it is just the Indian name given to these set of books.
And I was also reading some articles in Hindi, which are basically based on the Bible, and I could not make out what it means. Like, what are they called in Hindi? Any idea?
Yeah, the Hindi names are very different because, Joshua becomes Yeshua, and those names are really pretty different. Like even in Adam and Eve, it will become Adam and Hawa. So
and even like our Father in heaven and all becomes Swargiya something Pita, something like that.
Yeah.
While in Hindi, Swargiya means dead. So something like that. So it was a little confusing. So I just wanted to know maybe.
Yeah, the translations really, they don't give the correct meaning, and we really cannot translate Dev to God. or we cannot translate dharma as religion, because all these terms, they have such a different meaning. For example, like, when we speak dev, dev is something which comes from the root div, which means something which is bright, a source of energy, that which gives light, and light is knowledge. So that is what is the meaning of dev, and that doesn't really apply to god. So these terms are very different, and we should really not translate them into, Indian languages or the other way around.
Wonderful talk. And before I start anything, I must compliment you. Have a very soothing voice. I mean, yes, the lecture was very interesting, but hearing you, it was really a privilege. My question, ma'am, and I'm so sorry for a little disagreement here. Maybe it's a choice of phrase of words. When you said the shloka that you said, which is about there are multiple gods, your God can be different from mine, but the shloka isn't the shloka about Satya. So your Satya can be different from my Satya, and my Satya can be that there is no God. My Satya can be there is a Karma Yoga. My Satya can be something else. And for this, if I have to root back, I'm so sorry, I'll just go a little bit. Is it okay if I talk a bit? For example, when we talk about, the Abrahamic religions, today's Sanatani's approaches, we often dismiss it and we say, okay, these are the religions that came from the deserts. These are the people who are ignorant. But I think these are the people who are not ignorant. Like our sages, they also went out, they also explored, and what they realized is that there is no God. Now, the point is that you come back and you tell people. Now, the point is that what truth you tell the people. You tell them there is a God and these are the commandments that I have received, or you take the Sanatani approach and you come back and say that no, there is no truth. There is no God, but yes, there is higher consciousness that you have to go and explore. So these are the two different approaches. So if you could just speak a little bit about it. And I have another question. I'm not sure if it is related to the topic or not. There is a very interesting conversation that goes on wherein people say that when we talk about the Adam, Eve, and the garden of whatever the garden is called, right? The fruit of knowledge is, of course, what really is the truth. And the snake is actually a depiction of, in a crude way, you can call pagan. In a refined way, we'll call something like Sanatani to say that please go and find out what it is. So God discourages and says that do not listen to the snake, it's the evil. I'm giving you the things on the platter, and you're supposed to follow this and be a good one. So if you could just speak a little about it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jashoda ji. You spoke about Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. So you were speaking about Satya. So Sat is that which is, beingness, isness. That is Sat. And when we speak about God, and we also say, the eternal truth. Yeah, so there isn't anything like, your truth is different, my truth is different, or something like that. It is eternal truth. So the supreme truth, that you can say is the Sat. And and your second question was about the fruit, eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. That fruit was basically to give the knowledge of what is good and what is bad. So by eating that fruit, Adam and Eve, they would come to know what is right and what is wrong. So what happens is, after eating that fruit, they realize that they are naked, and then they hide in the trees when God comes to see them, because they realize that they are naked, and that is not good, probably. So that is the fruit of the tree of knowledge. This, in the Indian context, is the Vivek, being able to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, or what is Sat and what is Asat. It is Sad Sad Vivek Buddhi, or it is the Sarasara Vivek, or it is called Atmanatma Vivek, being able to differentiate between what is temporary and what is permanent. So and this Shankaracharya, he speaks about all of this in his Vivek Chudamani. So this knowledge of what is right and wrong, That is Vivek. And so that snake is a evil. He is devil who comes and tempts Eve to do something against the wishes of God.
This superiority complex that the god holds, does it also reflect in their actions? I know the colonialism that happened was economic, but also what drives that economic greed in them also, and to probably civilize everybody. I'm not going into the political domain, I'm just going purely psychologically. Does that also affect this whole bullying, racism that happens in Western countries, and also their approach towards the whole world?
There are multiple parts to this. One part is that, this missionary concept, where people think that everybody who is not a Christian, they are going to hell. And they must help people from not going to hell. And that is why they must convert everybody into Christianity. So this work, which is done by missionaries, many of them, it is based on goodness. Actually, it comes from inner goodness, that I want to do something good for you and you should become a Christian, and then it will take care of your afterlife. So that is one part. Second part is, Bible also speaks about this, that when God created people, he said to them that, now I have created all of these plants and animals and fish and birds. You go and rule. So you rule upon the animals, you rule upon the land. So that is one view which came into the followers of Christianity amongst all the people who were the Europeans, the colonialists. So they had that view. There is one more thing, which is that from the church, when the Spanish people and the Portuguese people, they were searching for new lands, they went to the Catholic Church, to the Pope, and asked them, like, what are we to do? We want all the land. But then the Pope says that the Pope divided the land in two parts. That one part will be for these people, and the other part will be for the Portuguese. And what the Pope really tells them is that, yes, you go to those lands, and this is a person who is a dharma guru. Yeah, he is a teacher, he is a great teacher. But instead of telling that go there, learn something, teach something, visit those places, find out what is new, so instead of saying that, what has been given in that decree is that, go and rule, plunder, enslave the people over there. These are the commands which are given. And this applied to all the colonialists who came to Africa, who came to India, who came to Australia, America, everywhere. They simply just followed it. In fact, even the division of Africa into various countries, drawing all those borders of the countries, that was also based on this belief that once I discover a land, it belongs to me. And in some ways, it is the Catholic Church, the popes, who helped in this feeling.
How Sri Krishna talks about the Karma Yoga in the Gita, and they don't understand the concept of karma. They think that every single thing we do, like eating, drinking, sleeping, is also karma. They'll say हम तो अपना कर्म कर रहे हैं और हम किसी का हार्म नहीं करते, they don't understand the difference between karya, kriya and karma. Like in the Vedas, the Karma Kand was all about the yajna and doing good things to offer to the god. Sri Krishna redefined that in the Gita. For the contemporary settings and karma, you cannot equate it to kriya and karya.
Good question. Basically, when all of this has been defined, like, during the Vedic times, the yajna were defined, and yajna there were pancha mahayajna were defined as the karma. And then later on, what was done was, in the later times, we see that this pancha yajna, mahayajna, they have been defined for every person. And various dharma have also been defined. And all of this together, they define what the karma should be. So they define, like, for example, the Panchamaha Yajna. They tell that you have to do the Bhuta Yajna. So Bhuta Yajna is being kind and helping the animals. So you have to do Bhuta Yajna daily. Then there is Pitru Yajna. So you have to, like, take care of your parents and the elders in your family, your ancestors, on a daily basis. You have to do that. Then there is Brahma Yajna, which says that, you have to study daily. You cannot just, like, I'm done with my studies and finished, I got my degree. That is not the case. Daily you have to study. So that is the Yajna of Shabda. So that is the Brahma Yajna which has been told. So like that, uh, various things that have to be done by a person that have been defined. And along with that, there is also the dharma which is defined, which says that, like, manav dharma is this. These are the things you should do. Or if you are a putra, so these are the duties and responsibilities of a putra. If you are a father, this is the dharma of pita. This, if you are a king, this is the raja dharma. So all of these things that are defined, which tell what the karma you should be doing. And yeah, I think that will help to understand that what karma actually is.
Very, very interesting talk, and I must thank Sangam Talks for organizing all these talks. Now, I want to ask a question. Even I feel the Bible has given very limited, knowledge or understanding. Our culture and our Indian dharam is so vast and it's so beautiful. But somehow, okay, the Muslims convert forcefully, but the Bible has spread to Africa and far off places. How come Hindu dharam has never spread so much? And why is nobody doing it? Because it is such good knowledge. The world needs this knowledge. So I think it is our duty to, spread it to the whole world. Like these Christians have come and, spread their Bible. In fact, there's a joke in Africa that they took our land and they gave us the Bible. So why we Hindus are not doing anything about spreading this, our vast knowledge to the world, which is so good actually. And it is so true. Like every word, what I read and what I hear is makes sense. It's not only, it's not a dharam, it's very, very logical. So I feel we should do that. And why is it not happening? Because Hindu population, there's only one Hindu nation in the whole world, which is Nepal. Even India is not a Hindu nation. It is very shocking, and I think something should be done about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lataji. I'll tell you in my opinion here. Hindu dharma is called as a Sanatan dharma. So it is eternal. It doesn't have a start. Something which is new, it needs to be, like, propagated. So Christianity was a new religion. We know when it was born. Or even Islam, it was a new religion. And then they didn't have any followers. So it was necessary for them to, go about propagating that religion and converting people and increasing the number of Christians or increasing the number of Muslims. But that was not the case ever with the very ancient dharma. So that was not the case with Hindu. That was not the case with the Parsis. That was not the case with the Greeks. So even in the ancient times, when we see that, Alexander comes to Persia, he doesn't want to make them Greek or the same way, like, so all these ancient cultures, they don't have any feature in them to convert somebody else. So that is, now that remains only in the Hindu religion today. So that is one thing. Another thing is to be a Christian or to be a Muslim, there is a very precise definition. So to be a Christian, you have to believe in these 5 things. You have to believe in God, you have to believe in Jesus, that he was a prophet, he was born from a virgin mother, and you have to believe in resurrection and the last day of judgment, etc. So if you are believing in those 4, 5 things, you are a Christian. Same will go with Islam as well. These are the 5 things you have to do as a Muslim. But when you speak about Hindu, no, there is no such definition which will tell you, no, if you are doing this, then you are a Hindu, or if you're not doing this, you're not a Hindu. So it is really difficult to convert somebody and say, okay, now तुम्हारे माथे पे तिलक लगा दिया है, आप हिंदू बन गए. It is not so easy. It is just a way of living. It's a culture. It's a sanskriti. And what we can really do is we can simply keep on talking about what we have and keep on giving it to the world. So today we have this yoga day. So this is one darshan from the Hindu dharma, which has gone all over the world, and all over the world it has been accepted. So similarly, we simply need to keep on speaking about what we have. That is what I think is propagating. It is propagating the thoughts. It is not propagating the religion. It is speaking these thoughts and teachings.
Ms. Deepali, you quoted from the Old Testament, but actually, a Christian would tell you that the Old Testament has been superseded by the New Testament, and that Jesus came to fulfill the laws of Moses, not to destroy them. Okay,
Right.
so how would you react to this fact? And secondly, I think the definition of sin in Christianity is very different in the sense of original sin, right? Which is the key.
Yeah.
So, could you please elaborate on these 2 points? Because the Bible also says that you should not steal, you should not lie, you should honor your father and mother, and so on in Exodus. So, there is a qualitative difference. Can you explain these 2 things?
Yes. First part where you said that New Testament supersedes the Old Testament, that is not the case, because Jesus himself says that I have come to fulfill what the Old Testament says. So Old Testament is valid. And if you look at all the various sects of Christianity, all of them, they accept this Old Testament. So it is a part of the Bible. So Bible is not just the New Testament, it comes with the Old Testament as well. So that is one thing. The second the thing that you mentioned was about the sin, the original sin, right? So many philosophers in the later times, from 3rd century onwards, they had been debating and trying to understand what exactly the sin is. And then they came up with these so many things. They have the original sin, which is the sin which was committed by Adam and Eve, that is called as the original sin. And then every person who is born a Christian is born in that sin. So even before the fetus has done, there is only one birth basically in Christianity. So before being born, before doing anything at all, the baby is a sinner. So every person is born in that sin, and because everyone is a sinner, he has to or she has to, they have to believe that Jesus Christ had given up his life, or he has suffered for the sins of humanity, for the sins of mankind. So that is also another belief, which is again around this sin, and it creates so many problems. It creates problems because Jesus has suffered 2000 years ago for the sins of the humanity. So then what about the people who were born before Jesus? So that is a question which people have been thinking about and writing about it. They also had this question about what about Gandhiji? Gandhiji was such a great person, but he was not a Christian. So what happens to him? So they said that however good he was, he would have gone to hell because he did not believe in Christ. Then there is this some sect of Christianity who baptized Mahatma Gandhi after his death posthumously, and then they declared that now that he is a Christian, he has a place in heaven for him. So there is lots of there are so many questions about this, and those are not really answered well.
Thank you for your answer, but my concerns about the relative position of the New Testament versus the Old still stand, because you see, in the New Testament, for instance, the prohibition against eating swine is completely done away with. The requirement for circumcision is completely done away with, which is the sign of the covenant.
Yeah, these were the very early debates in Christianity. Yeah.
So it's very clear that there is an element of supersession when you come to the New Testament as opposed to the Old, because the Old there is a reason it's called Old, right?
Yeah, there might be a couple of cases, where they will say that as you have described about circumcision, that has been superseded in the New Testament. But the basic philosophy, what is told in the Old Testament, it holds. Because when you start looking at the history of Christianity post 4th century, you will see that they are doing exactly all those things which have been told in Old Testament.
Dipaliji, I'll probably continue the question that Tanya ji asked at the beginning. She talked about how the society is confused between kriya and karma, which means if degeneration is a very strong or a very harsh word, something like this is happening to the society. Do you think it is because today everyone wants to talk about their rights, their adhikar, and not about the karma? Even our constitution talks about I have the right to do this, I have the right to propagate my religion. And if that is happening, what do you think is the way forward? Just your opinion.
Can you please repeat the last line?
From karma to adhikar, and if you look at our own our traditions, it is about if the daughter follows the karma of towards the mother, adhikar, kartavya towards the mother, towards the parents, then ultimately the adhikar comes with it, right? So how do you think, so where is the society going, and what do you think would be the turnaround for us? Just your opinion.
Yeah. You pointed out so well, Jashoda ji, that the Indian dharma, the word itself, it speaks of duty and responsibility. It speaks about accountability, and everything that has been taught to us is like, what is the, as I said earlier, Raja Dharma. So Raja Dharma is what are the things that the Raja should do, or the Pitru Dharma, or the Putra Dharma. So all of these things are what you are supposed to do, what are your duties. And whereas in this modern thinking, we speak about rights. So everything, even our constitution, is based around the rights. Whereas the old thinking is that when everybody is fulfilling his or her role, and everyone is doing his or her work, his or her duties, then automatically the rights are, what do you say, people get their rights as well, and that happens automatically. So this was a wonderful thing that you pointed out, and that is very right. So unless we go back to taking responsibilities, unless we start going back to taking responsibility, saying like, as a citizen, what are the things that I should do, and in my small way, when I start contributing towards the nation, then I think things will change. So just being the change that we want to see, so we start taking up just duties and not speaking about rights, but speaking about duties.
Very beautifully put. So we should not look for the government to make these changes. It has to be a grassroots change. We need to change, and the society will change. Government will follow. They any which way will do what the nation wants. Thank you so much.
Very much. Thanks to all the listeners for listening to me patiently, and to Sangam Talks for giving me this opportunity.